was 15, there's those shows at the church off like 23rd in Ann Arbor, I think.
Mm-hmm.
The basement.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. That was a long time ago.
yeah,
That was a long
yeah.
time ago.
I remember going to one of those shows and like, once again, like I was alone, didn't really know. Like I knew a few people there, but
Mm-hmm.
it was mostly kind of just like standing in the corner and watching. And I just remember like after my brother picked me up later that night, we were driving home, and I was just telling him all these things like, yeah, I'm going to start a band. Like, I already have this idea. I'm going to start writing songs when I get home. And at the time, I couldn't play. I didn't know how to play any instruments. Like, I messed around with the piano, like the keyboard at our house. We had a keyboard,
Mm-hmm.
and like my brother had a guitar, and I'd strum it, but I couldn't play any chords. Didn't know any chords. Didn't know anything.
Yeah.
But I just had this feeling like, okay, like, yeah, I'm gonna do that. Like that's what I have to do.
Yeah.
Um, that's a great thing. Like I want I want more people in the world to have that.
For sure. Yeah.
Well, to have that space also, just to like be able to create and like feel safe and be able to feel excited to like put something out. And like that's why, yeah, like people like you should start a podcast, you should start a band,
Yeah.
you should do whatever you're doing, even if you think it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, definitely. That feeling you're talking about comes and goes too. It like I remember that I know that feeling you're talking about. Like I've had that feeling as a young kid too when I would see like Harp and Lyre or something or go to a show at the conservatory where it was they were playing something that you actually loved that wasn't like on the radio. Like something you didn't actually hear all the time back then when you didn't have access to streaming and like
Yeah.
you had to really dig and like or people would just gift you like on random with like a random band that you heard that you'd never heard before and it gave you that feeling of like whoa, I like that, I've never heard that, I want to do that. Like what's cool about that feeling is it never goes away. It keeps coming and going. Like some days you'll feel it, some days you won't. Some days that I don't feel it, I'm like almost depressed because I'm like, man, I don't feel, I don't know, certain things aren't jumping out to me as much as they used to or something like that. And then randomly it'll just happen. Just
Mm-hmm.
a random song or like a random type of music or a movie or a TV show. Or honestly, for me recently, it's been like landscapes for some reason. I don't know, just like different type of landscapes just make me think of creative avenues I hadn't thought about before. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's weird, weird in a good
Mm-hmm.
way.
No, that's interesting, and I think there's something there with like just the environment and this stimulus like that needs to happen in the environment. Like, it doesn't need to happen, but it's hard when you're in pandemic times and you're like locked up in your house and
Yeah,
you're seeing the same things every day and you're staring at the screen every day. Like it's hard to like really be woken up, like have that kind of like you were saying, like almost a little bit of fear, like the
mm-hmm.
butterflies in your stomach,
Yeah,
the energy, or
yeah,
even like you're saying landscapes, going and seeing a big open prairie or plain or whatever, and it just like it opens up your mind. Like this space is more than just a sight.
mm-hmm.
It's like you feel it and
It almost
it does
gives you
something in your
room.
mind.
It gives you room to think almost, or at least for me, like, I feel like it gives me room to think. I'm like I can see for practically miles every direction. Like I went to the Panhandle of Oklahoma a couple weeks ago, and like just witnessing a boring open field for some reason unlocked something in my head for me that I was just like, I don't know. It was easier to take the thoughts I had swimming around in the funk of like looking at these digital screens and staying safe and covering my mouth and not hugging a person for like a year basically.
Yeah,
Like it really
yeah, being
like
cut off.
yeah, it's really crazy that it can affect someone in like a very positive way. And
Uh,
I f yeah, we definitely tend At least I tend to forget that a lot of the time.
Yeah. No, and I mean, it's like you have all those thoughts either way, but when you're in that situation, uh, you can just cut through the bullshit.
Yeah.
Or you just have the realization, like, I'm going to die. Like, I'm going to
Yeah.
fucking die.
Yeah.
And, like, what am I going to do about that?
Yeah.
And, like, what really moves me on this earth? And then, like, all the thoughts flying by, you know, all the people in the world telling you what to do and telling you how to think, what to feel, like, you can just disregard it because, yeah, I don't know. There's something special about that. Like, yeah, it can be the open space with no one around. It can be the room or the basement stuffed full of people like sweating and playing music. But
Yeah. I was just about to say, I mean, that sounds like touring. That sounds like the collective
yeah,
feeling you and I and like millions of people probably can like relate with of any like I mean, yeah, touring is definitely where I felt that the most in my life.
hmm
Cuz yeah, you're on your own schedule, you're on your own rules. You have a set rules that only you and a few other people know that are in that van or like even if they're spoken for or not. Like I don't know, yeah, it's sometimes I don't think I'm ready for the world, but then I look back at situations I've been in through touring alone, and I'm like,
hmm
I think I might be ready.
yeah, yeah. Like you get put in situations where you have to like grow up quick.
Yeah, yeah, or at least remind you that you either have already grown up pretty quick, or it's not that hard to kind of buckle down and just do it for a day or for a day or two or like however long it takes, to get through that. But even through those trials, we could still find that spark of creativity. That's a crazy thing. I think
hmm
that's teetering on the line between being crazy and like uh I don't know, persevering. Like
Yeah,
being in freezing weathers like in a van or some shit and like but like loving it or not loving it that day. I don't know. Could be a bad day. Who knows? But there's still the
yeah,
creativity that comes with it in some people.
yeah. And that reminds me, like when I think back to my teenage years and being a young adult, almost everything, at least in my early life, almost everything that made me feel capable or like responsible or that I could handle the world, that I could take on life and all the unknowns, like is creating, is like having something in my hands and making it, making something out of nothing or yeah, collaborating with other people also. But it's like that's where, it's like some people they get confidence from sports or from academics. But
Hmm.
that wasn't me
Right.
at all. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Hmm.
But it's like you need young people, they need something that like they can call their own or like something that moves them and
Hmm.
that makes them feel like, like I can grow up and go into the world and be a good person or just be okay, be happy.
Yeah. That yeah, I never got that from sports. I played a lot of sports, but like I never got that feeling and I think that was like now looking back at it, I think that was the moment that I subconsciously realized um that it didn't give me a spark to be creative. It was more of like an outlet for have hanging out with friends, basically making friends with the people that I was playing with the people I was around, just a young teenager wanting to hang out with buddies basically. And yeah, by
Yeah, more like
like
a social club.
yeah, like just cuz I mean, we both at least grew up homeschooled. And so like I think that has a, you know, something to do with it, but
Yeah.
yeah, I never did get that from sports. The creative drive or the push because I mean, yeah, it's not there's nothing wrong with that cuz there are plenty of uh talented athletes that are creative and they're always pushing themselves and they're usually the ones that succeed in the greatest way. Like
hmm
but yeah, wasn't for me for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember being like 14 and there was the homeschool football team and I wanted to join so bad, but only because like I just want to have friends,
Yeah, for
or
me,
like
that's yeah.
I don't know, like when when you're, I guess I wanted to play football. I guess like that was an idea in my head. That, oh yeah, this is what I should do as a young man. Like,
That
this is
was
what
yeah. That was
I don't
my
know.
that was my thoughts about it too. I was like, yeah, I guess I'll play football. I guess I watch it. I guess I have a favorite team. I think, like,
Yeah,
yeah, it's I don't know. I wish I would have. I wish I would have pushed myself when I was that young to like ignore the sports stuff and go straight head on into music.
mhm.
Like, I mean, I was still playing music then, but it wasn't like probably what it could have been if if it was reversed with sports. Like,
Yeah.
but anyways, that's just
There's there's always like that. I think everyone has that feeling with something like, oh, I wish I would have done this, or I wish I would have done it sooner,
yeah.
or like I missed my chance.
Right. Right.
And like I felt that way for a long time about like programming or like anything technical with computers. Because like when I was younger, when I was 12, I was on on the computer all the time, all night. Like there was this game, Second Life.
Yeah.
You heard of Second Life?
Yeah.
I used to play that when I was 12.
Nice.
You like make an avatar, and it's
Yeah.
just like virtual world.
Yeah.
And what was cool about it is like it's basically programmable. So like the developers of the game or whatever, they made kind of just like a vanilla world with a digital video game currency, and they're like, okay, so now go out, you can program new stuff, design new stuff, you can buy real estate in it. And then from then on, like all the players kind of just went to create and expand out the world. Anyway, like I was obsessed with that game, and there was like scripting in it, or like a scripting language, like a little programming language. And I remember kind of like trying to mess around with it for a few days, and kind of convince myself like, yeah, I'm gonna learn this, like I'm gonna make all this cool shit and like animate it and all that, and it never happened. Like at least when I was young, it didn't happen.
Mm.
And then once I was 19, 20, 21, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to get my life together. I'm gonna have to figure out what I'm gonna do. I would have these thoughts that like, oh, I missed my chance. I could have been one of those kids that started coding when they were 12 and is just set up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I was almost that person, but I just wasn't. And that's such a terrible thought. That's such a terrible, like, if anyone ever tells someone that, that's a fucking horrible thing to tell them. And it's a horrible thing to tell yourself. And like, I'm glad I didn't listen to that voice. But, that applies to everything. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
if it's music, if it's art, anything. And it's actually, it's exciting to realize that. Like the whole array of creative, arts and crafts in even technical things or sports or any of that, like it's all open to me.
Mm-hmm.
I could do any of it, whatever I'm curious about, whatever I'm interested in,
Yeah.
I can get after it. And yeah, like that's, I don't know, that it takes a lot, I guess, to get to that point.
Yeah, I mean, we're just so conditioned to, yeah, believe that we're just supposed to find something that we're supposed to find something we're supposed to do for the rest of our lives until we're like old and retire, basically, is what's expected.
Yeah, specialize in one
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, like, or a few things that like you've been doing, yeah, since you were a kid, and it's it's frustrating to see how like unprepared we are. One, just as a like I guess just as a country, like when it comes to that field of and I don't want to drift. I don't want to get that bug and drift right back into politics about all
Yeah.
of it, but just from I don't know, yeah, it definitely felt kind of like you're saying, like in order to start doing that, you have to break through what you've already been taught subconsciously, and
Mhm.
that shouldn't even be a thing. Like that seems like such a setback. Like
Yeah.
it's not like it's not if you don't allow it to become one, but it can be for some people.
Mhm.
For us, it might be easier than others just because of how we came into existence, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, even like my mom used to tell me, you can do anything.
Mm-hmm.
She was that type of parent, uh, and I guess I basically believed it when I was young. But once through the ages like 14, 18, you really, like, those are the ages where that really gets choked out of you in a lot of
Yeah.
ways. Or maybe it's different for other people, but like, um, I don't know, just once you start colliding with the world and with reality, and you're no longer a kid with just these ideas kind of playing by yourself and like sharing them with your brothers and your little friends and all that, like, once you're really colliding with reality, it's harsh. It
Yeah.
pushes you down, and it puts you in your place.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, you can't do shit. Like, get good, kid. Like, that's basically how it goes. And yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us, a lot of people our age, we weren't raised to. How do you say this? We weren't raised with like a lot of adversity, or like raised in such a way to like, get ready to face adversity.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that wasn't really hammered in when I was a kid. Like, the world was kind of presented as, and it wasn't on purpose, but just the way that I was raised, like, it just seemed like I was going into a relatively kind world,
Right.
where people would like me and like my ideas and all that. But that's not the case. Like, you're going into the jungle.
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
I had a different upbringing, I think. That was more of reality up front and well, I mean, for the beginning it was fine, like majority of people's, but yeah, towards there in the middle there was definitely a slap of reality, and that's kind of why I don't know, I try not to, and this is going to come off really dickish, I think, but I try not to waste time with, or I try not to just waste my time, and not in like a, I guess it is a little selfish, but not in like a I'm better than you type of way, but more of just like you learn at some point in your life that time is extremely precious. It's pretty much the only thing that exists, like your time on this planet. And yeah, like once you kind of realize that, and then you also know that, well, I get a spark of life from creating, then you want to spend a majority of that time on just creating things with people. And yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot too.
yeah, I'm trying to get more like that. I'm really inclined to waste my time and not defend my time, but I'll have those regrets like afterwards. Like, I'll
Mm-hmm.
think back, like, oh man, and once again, this sounds like dickish, but like, oh, I was hanging out with this person and like we didn't do anything, and like maybe I wanted to talk about stuff and like really go deep, and they were just more like surface level, and you get older and you have more and more of these interactions. And I think especially now, like, everyone is, just watching Netflix and
Mm-hmm.
on social media, and they're playing with their distractions and their video games, or they're playing in their social games of whatever kind they are.
Yeah.
And it seems like it seems like the default is just to kind of go into that, like, find your place in the hierarchy, you
Right.
know,
Yeah.
find your place where it may, if at least if you're above someone, then
Yeah.
at least you can feel,
Yeah.
you know,
That's why I like
good about yourself.
playing games at this point is just funny because that's what usually the chat and like the other people are like. When people are like, "Oh, that game or these people are toxic that play the game," it's literally just a bunch of people that are tired of being below someone else, and then any chance they get, and now it's just funny. Now it's just funny to get shit talked to me because I'm just like, you just think about that and you're like, all right, muting whoever said that and moving on. Like, it's yeah, it's funny to realize those. things.
Well, and video games are like fake work, like fake life.
Yeah. No,
It's like it's a meta hierarchy.
I've really been trying to tell myself that, because I was gonna add on to what you were saying earlier of like, um, I've been trying to look at time I've spent and see what I got out of it, as in like what can I learn from it. I've been trying to. This goes against my natural thinking process, but I've been trying to tell myself, what did I learn out of this interaction, this time I spent playing this game, this time I spent trying to write this music? Like, what did I learn from this experience in a positive way? I try and
Mhm.
take some, just try and learn something from everything you do, and games are frequently becoming less and less and less on that list of like,
Yeah.
what did I actually learn from carrying a team in a game, like doing really good in a game, and like being top frag, or like being like the best at this or whatever. Like, what did I actually gain? Did I gain uh confidence that's going to translate into reality? With me, probably not, because
Yeah.
because I have a lot of in-game confidence in a lot of games, but it doesn't translate very well.
Into the game of life.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny too. Like, you might be trying to do some. You might be like, okay, so like video games are like these fake life, like these fake hierarchies. But you're doing this like in real life. You're trying to climb the hierarchy, but in the game, you're also trying to do it. But if you're playing a game like I've been playing Rocket League a little bit, like if you're playing Rocket League, it's actually harder for me to climb the Rocket League hierarchy than it probably is to climb a lot of hierarchies in real life.
Probably.
Like, fucking up.
Actually,
Like,
it
people
is.
are so good at that at that fake, game.
Yeah.
And it's funny, but yeah, I feel what you're saying. Like you want to, and I've had the same kind of thoughts. Like I want to get something out of it, and like you were saying, learning, and definitely that, but even like inspiration, energy,
Yeah.
or maybe just like relaxation.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and there are times when that happens, or connecting with your friends. Like if you play a game with your friends.
That is true. Yeah, that is true.
And like it's good. Like I think that can be good for people. Like,
Mm-hmm.
but it's obvious. It's a lot of creativity and energy is being thrown away in the
Yeah.
games. But like, and I recognize that creativity can come out of it, and art
Oh
can be
yeah.
made out of it, and that people do.
Streamers.
Yeah,
Yeah, like streamers, playthrough guides.
speed runners and like
Yeah.
all of that
Yeah.
stuff. Like it can be beautiful and like amazing and
Yeah.
interesting and inspiring, but that's like at the peak of play. That's kind of like, I mean, like if you're playing basketball, if you're just like a guy that likes to play basketball at the local courts or something, and you go, maybe you play a few games a week, like that's fine. Like, but if you're not going to go into the NBA, but you're playing like every day, like it's your life, like you have to get better than the guys in the court.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like there's a point where that crosses over to being unhealthy, and like
And yeah, it's like an obsession. It becomes
yeah,
like yeah. I can get that way sometimes with anything, pretty much anything, and it's become a experiment sometimes in my head of like, I wonder how good I can get at this before like giving it up. That might just be like a competitive person trait. It probably is. That's what I'm explaining. I'm gonna
mm-hmm.
take another sip of whiskey.
I mean, and competitive too. I think that's another reason to play video games. Like, oh man, I saw an amazing tweet yesterday that was like, all these people that are like, I don't want to go into politics, but basically like all these people that are freaking out about politics and like getting super tribal about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like they didn't realize that sports is like the outlet that you use to be tribal.
Oh
And then the
yeah,
game can end
yeah,
and you can go home. Like you can get all of that energy out and be super tribal and like,
yeah, yeah,
fuck you to the other side and like,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know, and rile up and get all that raw
yeah.
primal energy. But then you can walk away from it and sometimes riot in the streets for some for some
Hey
sports.
man,
But
I had a high thought the other day when I was downtown. I was skating with uh, Michaela and Vinny, and I was like thinking to myself, I should have said something, but it was so like deep in my brain that I didn't feel comfortable talking about it yet. But I was like, you know what, man? If all these protests and stuff keep going on, why don't we just bring back street boxing? Or why don't they just settle these things in a very primalistic way that doesn't involve all this unnecessary death? Maybe beat the shit out of each other in a game and everyone will feel a lot better. Like it's kind of like a not a serious thought at all, but I was just thinking to myself, I mean that I feel like that would work somehow. I don't know. Like you think of like old sports games and fans like literally rioting at sports events because someone lost or someone trash talked or big like brawls and then I don't know. Like
yeah, like anytime you can keep. Well, I mean, there's obviously you want a crowd if
mm,
you're trying to get your voice out there, like for protesting. But like if you're talking about violence, then yeah, you want to have it small as possible. Like if you
yeah.
can send, like the whatever, like in the movies, like send out your best guy and we'll send out
Yeah.
our best guy.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't want violence. I don't want unnecessary
Yeah,
violence. But there's a difference between like boxing violence and like fighting MMA violence almost,
mm-hmm.
and then like I'm gonna kill you because it's fight or flight for me at
Yeah,
this point. Like, I don't know. Yeah, we need. It's almost like we need a different primal outlet. It was sports, and then sports became so established in capitalism that it kind of like stopped. I feel like it stopped being more about that primal instinct of like we're gonna beat you and you're gonna beat me to like okay who's got the most money and who's being moved into this season and
yeah,
who are we gonna bet on to like win some money on the side in our like fantasy sports shit or whatever like
yeah. It's all data analytics.
yeah it's
People
like
are watching the game. They're watching like like full dashboards of just like
yeah
stats and like
there needs to be
people.
rugby games.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, or just like, well, people like watch like 6 games on a Sunday or something. I don't know how many games they're having during COVID, but
yeah, I don't,
they'd flip between 6 games or like multi-screen, multi-stream, like all these different games, and it's like you're just looking at numbers.
yeah, yeah,
Like at this point, you're not like looking at the guys down there on the ground, the people down there on the ground, like sweating and getting after it and like
yeah,
fighting for their lives. Um, yeah, I mean, especially like with everyone being cramped up at home, like we've got to get this energy out. We've got to get like our disputes, our arguments, and like all that out in a way that isn't gonna destroy us and tear us apart. And so, obviously, we're not making any statements about anything
yeah,
that's
no,
happening in the political realm right now. Just generally speaking, like people are riled up.
yeah,
Understandably, shit is fucking crazy,
yeah,
and like yeah, we gotta do something. But I think that like it kind of falls on the individual
mm-hmm.
to some extent. Like we want to be able to do stuff together, but if you can have some kind of practice, something that helps you get that energy out, keeps your mind clear, it's so important. And
Mm-hmm.
I wish, and this is why I hate the bastards at the CDC, at the FDA, all these organizations and all these people that were trying to protect us from COVID and putting in all these regulations, telling us don't wear a mask doesn't help. Okay, actually wear a mask, and like all this back and forth, and they didn't tell people like you need to be like avoiding sugar, like you need to be working out, drinking
Yeah,
lots of water, be sure to get sun. They're like, no,
yeah,
eat your
yeah.
fucking cereal and
Get
watch
in your cave.
Netflix. Yeah, put on your face diaper and just
Grind your
we'll take care
teeth.
of shit. Yeah,
Grind your teeth. Flip through Netflix. Shut the fuck up. Put on a mask. Don't put on a mask.
yeah. And it's like, this isn't, you're not helping people. Like, you're making people crazy. And all of these, like, especially the people who take it, like, literally, like, some people were locked up in their house legitimately for, like, 3 months, and they would do nothing but go into their backyard. Or it's like, you can take a walk in the park. You can, and that's another thing. They're closing the fucking parks. And it's just, yeah, like, we're the human animal.
How many people at the beginning of this year did that exact thing where they like came out on their back porch though and they were like how far off though were we from the pod people existence, you know? Like where, cuz I feel like there was a bunch of people that probably went out on their back porch and were like, "Oh fuck, we got a grill." Like, and it's behind a bunch of vines that have been overgrowing on their house, or like they hadn't cut their lawn or something. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like that's why it was so easy to tell people to do that because people are like, "Oh, that's what I do anyways." Like,
Yeah.
it's like another Saturday night for me. Just now, it's on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday. And
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, people are already living this kind of lifestyle, but a little bit less so. They're still going out to the bars and
that's true.
getting
That's
out
true.
at least a little bit. Like, I hear of people, like, some of my friends, I won't name any names, but people who are, so there's a healthy level for, this is a deadly virus. All right. It's a pandemic. Like, it's deadly. We should be considerate. Like, you should wear a mask and be considerate and wash your hands and do all those things for other people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. With that being said, some people are debilitated by fear
Yeah.
and guilt. Like, guilt, I went out to, the grocery store this week, but then I also went over to my friend's house and hung out with two of my friends. Well, there was only three of us, but I feel guilty, like I shouldn't have done it.
That's me. That's been me majority of the year.
Yeah, and it's like, that's not, like, that's not good. Like, you should be, you should be safe, you should be careful, but you can't walk around with this extra load of guilt, an extra load of fear. That's, in a lot of cases, was overblown.
It probably does a lot of unseen damage on the human body too. Just not just like mentally, but like physically, like stress and like inducing and taxing. And I mean, I gotta be honest, I'm not really that worried about it anymore. If I don't know, my mom has it. My siblings are around her. They don't really have it. She's getting better every day. She's been taking steroids for it, like medical whatever steroids they gave her. I think it's getting weaker. That's just why I'm kind of just pissed off about why can't we get a for sure answer about anything. I think that's where I'm at. I'm not really scared anymore. Like is this is this what they if there is this like if there is some type of agenda, is this what they wanted? Like I don't know. It's hard to I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm full of I don't knows today.
I feel you. I mean, there's, when this thing started out, when I was seeing the videos on Twitter, like in February, what was happening in China, like
even
people welding doors shut.
Even in December and January, there were people around me like, man, it's just gonna be like swine flu. I was like, nah, bro, I think this is gonna be fucking big. Like, I think this is gonna be a problem. Like, yeah, no, yeah, they were, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
It was one of those things. No, I was I wasn't afraid up front, but I was taking it seriously. And I'm at the time I was a full-time delivery driver, and I was delivering the hospital 3+ times a day.
Yeah.
Into the ER.
Yeah.
In all these places, and I started wearing a mask probably late February, early March, something like that, to work. And people were just like, my coworkers were like, "Oh, like you're one of those people, like you're super germaphobe," and you're like, And I'm totally not that person too. Like I
Right.
wash my hands like 3 times a week tops.
Yeah.
And like, and they're like poking fun at me, and like I'd be walking, taking deliveries, and people would just like walk past me and look at me weird, and smirk or whatever.
Yeah.
And then, a month later, like basically, if you're in Oklahoma, after the Thunder game, like the Thunder game got canceled.
Mm.
I don't remember, one of the players, I think from the Raptors,
Yep.
or something like that, had it, got canceled, and then everyone like took it seriously all of a sudden.
Yep.
And then like it went from 1 week, people were smirking at me, and then the next week everyone else had a face diaper on.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that's fucking right.
Yeah.
but like, so I was that person in the beginning, but now like you're saying, like I've kind of drifted over the other side where, I'm pissed at the kind of the misinformation that we've been given from the CDC. It's clear that they're treating us like fucking plebs.
Yeah.
And like none of the number, like everyone's disagreeing on the numbers.
That's the thing. No one can fucking agree on something. It's pissing me off. Like, I've never given it. Maybe this is the sign that we're getting old officials, because we're actually giving a shit about it this much, though. I was thinking about that too. Like, I wonder how many young people, like, if we were 20 right now, if we would have been the people that were also like, yeah, fuck it. Like, what the fuck? What is this? What are y'all talking about? Like, nothing can shut me down. What are you talking about?
Well, like the Jersey Shore Spring Breakers.
Oh yeah. I don't think I would go that far. I don't think I'd go that far.
Oh man, that was epic.
No, that was peak humanity right there.
Yeah.
That was sick.
You gotta love it. That's what people are gonna, and Americans too. Like, I mean, Americans are gonna do that. Americans are gonna be like, "Fuck you! I'm gonna do what I want."
That's why if there is a civil war, it's gonna be crazy, man. It's either gonna be crazy or it's gonna be boring as hell, because everyone's been like watching Netflix for the past 10 years, and everyone in their mind is gonna be like, I don't know. What's that?
There's going to be a civil cyber war. We're just going to battle it out in Fortnite.
Yeah.
Like the biggest Fortnite tournament, 300 million Americans.
They should just make war and like conflicts a VR video game, and if you win, you get 4 years of bragging rights.
Yeah.
If you got to settle it, you go play a game of PUBG, buddy.
I mean, the Roman, like, isn't that how it went, like, in the Roman Colosseum?
I don't know.
No, I guess the Roman Colosseum was, like, purely for entertainment.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if they settled any scores over it. But, yeah, I mean, once again, like, politics, pandemic, not the most interesting topics, but, like, this is what we've got. This is what we're dealing with.
I was even thinking that might be we would subconsciously just even drift to that topic anyways with the first couple of episodes, just because it's on everyone's mind.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's relatable also, unfortunately, but it is nice to talk to someone who isn't like biased, and like I hope you feel that way with me as well, where like pretty much anything's possible, and because that's what I'm tired of not seeing, is like tired of not seeing the concept that anything's possible, because everyone seems to know exactly where we're headed all the time. And
yeah.
We don't at all. I saw something. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but then I saw something that saw headlines like 2 or 3 months ago that was like, an asteroid is gonna nearly miss the Earth, like the day before or day after the election, and then here we are, and now they're saying in like 2058 there's a trajectory of like a big, massive, potentially Earth wiping like asteroid that's supposed to hit, and like people are actually scared of this one. It's just like, I don't know. Are we really living? Who sees that and believes that in this time and age? It's, I don't know.
Well, it's kind of like, okay, so have you ever heard of Pascal's Wager, or Pascal the philosopher?
No.
So that he has Pascal has like this famous philosophical idea called Pascal's Wager, which is that if you basically there's no way to tell with absolute certainty if God is real. So you should just bet on him being real, and you should just like live in alignment in that, so that you don't like burn in hell. That was basically the idea.
Okay.
Okay, and then there's someone called Nick Szabo. He created or came up with the idea of a Pascal scam. And a Pascal scam is the idea that actually there's too many gods.
Scam?
There's too many religions.
Scam or scan?
Scam.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Pascal scam.
Okay.
And so there's too many gods. There's too many religions. You actually can't make a bet. You can't diversify. Like you can't put your chips, enough chips on each god, each religion to cover your bases. So it's actually that type of thinking is a scam. And so I think this applies to, I don't want to say existential threats as a whole, because we should think about existential threats, but a lot of the scare tactics that we hear, that we get fed like through the news,
yeah,
I think it could fall into that vein of just like, this is a Pascal scam. Like,
yeah,
there's too many things that too many groups are telling me is going to destroy the world.
Yeah.
I can't possibly do all of them. I can't. And in fact, just considering all of them gives me less energy and capability to even do my little part in one of them. Mm-hmm. And yeah, like, you know, you think about that. Is an asteroid coming? You know, global warming, nuclear war, viruses. Yeah, you know, AI, like super AI, like all of these things. Like, okay, they're real ideas that we should be thinking about, but like addressing it, like, I don't know, we need to progress generally.
Yeah.
Like we all need to progress. Like we need to progress technology so we can, you know, deflect the asteroid, and so we can pull carbon out of the atmosphere, and like all those things that we need to do. Like it's generally true. We need to be like pushing for technology and pushing for like truth seeking, you know, as a nation, as a society, and all of that. And of course, that's not happening, but
so it's so infuriating that technology that we watched growing up has been geared mainly towards being social. And that probably comes off as being like antisocial, because I'm not, but like that seems to be the priority, at least to the public's eye, at least to my eyes, that being social is way more important than a lot of the problems that technology has created for a lot of not only Americans, but I wouldn't say the rest of the world, because there's some places in the world that couldn't give a shit about social media, that are given things like phones, and they make life-changing and altering inventions because they haven't been in a society that's basically just sold social media. We're all being conned.
Like you're saying, we were given social media. We were given these media tools, and I think people use them because it's like, it feels like the most leverage that we have to be heard or to make any change or to do anything. Like it feels like that. Like if you're on a network, you know, and there's millions of people on it, and you have hundreds of friends on it or whatever, and you can connect with them and they can hear your ideas and all of that, you know, that seems, well, it is powerful, but it becomes this singular like thing that people use to, I mean, conduct with the world basically. And like you were saying, with some people, they're given the phone, they're given the technology, and they do something amazing with it. Like they create something new with it, or they solve a problem or something like that. And like really, yeah, we're given these phones. Yeah, there's Facebook on it, but there's also, I mean, the entire knowledge, like all the knowledge in the world basically, like is on the internet. Like you have all of the leverage. I mean, you could possibly want to do a number of things.
Yeah.
And I think technology, yeah, is one of those things. If you can learn how to code, if you can learn how to, I mean, even like using social media, if you can learn how to write, like actually write, or, you know, just like be additive, I guess is what I'm saying, like add value to the conversation, add value to people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just like be another voice, like saying the same thing. Like so many people tweet the same things as each other, or like they parrot the same things. Like you can bring up a subject and someone will start talking and they'll start making a point and you're like, I already read this. Like I've already heard your pre-processed information. And you'll hear it multiple times from multiple people.
And probably a lot of the problems we have with it have been things we've read and seen too.
Yeah, and we probably have our own versions of that on this very episode.
Yeah, exactly.
Where we're throwing out some hot takes.
Yeah.
So we're all victims to it, but really what I'm saying is like I don't want to be that person. Mm-hmm. Like I want to always be able to take a step back and question things. Yeah. But also I want to be able to get to the truth. I want to figure out what's going on with COVID. I want to know what the right thing to do is for my country, for my friends, for everyone who's struggling. But I can't listen to anyone.
Yeah. Like it sucks.
I have to figure it out on my own.
Yeah. It's liberating, but it sucks too.
Yeah.
I just looked up a not a statistic, but I just Googled how many people use social media on the planet. And
okay, can I make a guess?
Yeah.
2.5 billion.
It's higher than that, but it's a percentage.
Goddamn. Oh, okay.
It's a percentage. You want to guess the percentage too? This is of percentage. The world. There was two. So there was two. 40. There's two I looked up. There was U.S. and the world. So guess the U.S. one first.
Okay. The U.S.?
Yeah.
I'm going to say north of 80%.
Yeah, 79%.
Oh.
So you were like one off. 79%. But yeah, I guess the world.
That's almost crazy to think that there's 21% that doesn't.
Yeah. But that gives me a little ounce of hope in a way.
Yeah. Well, those are all the people in the panhandle.
yeah. Or I'm hoping they're not all old people, but then again, I think there's a lot of old people that use social media now.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, the world. I was gonna say north of 45%. I'm feeling 46%. For some reason, that's like in my head.
It's close. It's 53.
53.
Yeah. And these are just like quick Google searches, so don't take my word for it. But I was thinking it was way more. So I feel like there's still a little ounce of hope that like we're not completely I hope we see it in our lifetime. Things turn around and the truth is easily accessible instead of being this rabbit hole that you have to go down, or not even that, but just like trying to avoid the rabbit holes that are conveniently placed around the truth, Yeah.
It
seems like.
I think, or rather I hope, I'm optimistic that people are going to move away from like curated, centralized, top-down platforms, Facebook, Twitter, all of these, where they are at the controls, at the controls where hundreds of millions of people are like consuming this stuff. It's hugely powerful. Mm-hmm. And I think that, we were talking about RSS, like, I think that people are going to move towards more like curated, like types of social feeds or more peer-to-peer types of like connections. I think that people are going to get news more from individuals rather than organizations. And these are very hot takes. Like you've probably heard some version of this before, but like,
yeah,
that's really what I want to see. And like, we need to diversify with like, where we get information.
Yeah.
And who we listen to and who
we make journalists.
That too.
That's a big one.
The biggest journalists are really like the social media platforms.
Yeah.
Because if they can pull, if they can upregulate certain stories into your feed and downregulate others, like they're just filtering opinions. They're like, you're already getting your information filtered
Yeah.
for exactly what will make you emotional.
Yep.
And that's what's called engagement. Like, because that's what keeps you on the platform the most. So like that's their game. They're just like analyzing you with super detail with artificial intelligence and machine learning, and then they're like, okay, what will make them the most emotional? Feed that. Okay, what will make them the second most emotional? Feed that. And like that's what your timeline is.
Yeah.
It's just a hierarchy
Dude,
of what will
yeah.
make you emotional
That's
from moving down.
I told you one time, I didn't tell you specifically what it was I said, but I one time wanted to uh, test out a theory of just talking about a certain item randomly,
Yeah.
like multiple times by myself to see what my phone would show me, and it was duck decoys for like duck hunting. Because that's like the last thing that I would ever fucking use. And so I would just be in my car like duck decoy, duck decoy, duck decoy, duck decoy, just over and over again.
Oh
And
god.
like that's all I would get most of the time was like hunting shit. Like
Mm-hmm.
all my ads, and it like became sort of just kind of like I was like, "Oh, cool, that worked." But I mean, eventually it, it's and now it's stuff that I'm like, "Fuck, I don't need to buy that." But it's right there. So
Yeah, they got back to you eventually.
yeah. But for a while, I had it going. Where that was mainly when I wasn't using my phone earlier this year, like peak quarantine.
Yeah.
But now I'm circling back a little bit.
I've had this idea for a while that like once I go dark, we don't have to talk about that, but once I go dark, I want to like moving up to it. I'm gonna like use social media in such a way that is like way does not align with my personality or my interests at all.
Yeah,
Just
I think
like
that's the way to do it.
like because I just imagine that there's I don't imagine, I know there's just this immense collection of data that private companies hold that is awesome, and that they know me in ways that I don't know myself. And like, okay, I can't take that away from them. But what I can do is like steer that ship in the opposite direction. I steer that ship in one direction and then have a more private life, my personal life that I keep quiet on, and I steer that in my own direction and just get those two as far apart as possible and then cut the tie.
Yeah.
And like, I mean,
yeah, no, that's that's something we definitely need to talk about in the future because I was looking up yesterday, how do I erase myself from the internet? And I'm sure that's a question that you've thought of and many times.
Well, actually, I wrote down a topic that I think would be fun to talk about, which is, I put it down as digital defense. But I guess really just like an exploration of like how we are vulnerable digitally, and like what are the easiest low-hanging fruit that you can like take back, or tools that you can use to kind of protect yourself, or even in this scenario, like me and Jana were talking about this, just like defending yourself through technology. Okay, what if you had to search for something? If you had a question, you had to get an answer for it, but you could not. You had to make sure that no one else knew that you searched that. Basically, like the question that you're asking could not be tied to your identity. If it was tied to your identity, you would get thrown in a black bag and pulled into a van. And so if you ask most people this question, even though they spend all day on computers, they don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
Or similarly, if you had to get in contact with someone, message someone, but you absolutely had to make sure your identity wasn't attached to that message, and that message cannot be deciphered by anyone. Once again, people they don't know how to do that, and like so, I'm passionate about this, and I think it's going to become increasingly important. But yeah, I just think about this a lot, and I know that people aren't interested in it necessarily. Like it's not exciting for them, and also it's intimidating. And so like I don't know. I guess I'm interested in tools and practices that are really simple and really easy, but can make you feel like, wow, I'm protecting myself, or I'm giving myself optionality that humans didn't have in the past.
Yeah.
Like right now, you can send a message that every government on the earth could not crack if they want to. And in fact, you can send money that every government on the earth cannot seize or cannot crack or cannot do anything to. Um, and that's a lot of power. That's never been the case for people. And so, like, in any technologies like that empower the individual, like I'm passionate about. But yeah, I mean, we've got this huge treasure trove of our data. It's just out there. It's on the internet, and there's no way to get it back.
Yeah.
And so, like, we're starting from a losing position, and yeah, we'll have to. I'm starting to open it all up, but we'll have to talk about that on an episode.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I have an essay actually. It's called "Privacy from a Losing Position."
Oh, that's cool.
That I'm working on, because that's going to be all of us moving forward, and I hope we don't have to use it. But
I keep thinking about the light phone, that phone that basically is just texting and calling. I keep thinking about it.
Oh yeah.
If I really want to go down that road one day, I've just completely stop giving as much as I can. Stop giving more data to whatever is sucking it up.
Mm-hmm.
But
well,
I think
you gotta have the burner phone.
Yeah, pretty much.
What you need.
Yeah.
You have the phone that's attached to your identity, and then you have the phone that's not, that no one knows you have.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, I guess kind of circling back to creativity, because I wanted to touch on this, like, last part of it.
Yeah.
What are you what are you doing right now creatively? Like, what projects are you doing? And or, like, what is your process? Like, how do you get into practice or work on your ideas?
Right now, been working on I've been working on a few things. Just got done with an EP with Omen that we had worked on for the past like 6 months, I would say. And then also, it's a lot of music stuff, I guess, is where I should start. Working with Vinny and his project U from like a production point of view. It's kind of hard.
You're recording them.
Yeah. I don't know, with that production wise, it's been different than the usual path that I take when creating like the actual music itself. With music, it usually just kind of comes with whatever I'm feeling that day. I've been trying to ask myself that same question you asked me, and ask other people, like, how does the process start, or if there even is a process. And I think I'm still trying to figure that out myself, because it's usually just whatever I'm feeling that day comes out in a certain way. I've been really trying to pay attention to the thoughts in my brain and what's coming out of my fingers, basically, if I'm writing something, or like how something's coming out of my vocal cords or something. Like, where did that come from? What experience triggered that? And usually for me, it's still hard to figure that out. So I think a lot of my creativity comes from an emotional side. And if I'm not open to showing emotion that day or that week, sometimes that month, it's really hard to like squeeze it out almost. I'm not sure why. With production, though, it's a more analytical side of things. And I like the healthy balance of two different, like, processes. One is more like, I'm not emotionally attached to this project, but I'm invested and I want to make it sound good. Whereas then on the other hand, if I'm writing something, there's emotion put into it. There's like certain thoughts and feelings trigger certain sounds, and I may not understand it in the moment, but I will once it's done, most of the time. So yeah, I guess the answer is I'm still trying to figure that out myself every time that I create something. I mean, what about you?
Yeah, no, I mean, I really feel that. I think that for a lot of people who try and do art or be creative in any capacity, a lot of the default is running off of emotion.
Mm-hmm.
The default is like, if I feel like it, I'll do it, or when I'm inspired. And the thing is, emotion, when you're at a peak, you can get a lot out. You can get like a a week's worth of work done in a day type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But you're also you're a victim to your emotions on the other side, because when you're really not feeling it, it's so hard to engage with that, and especially if it's something personal or emotional, like you were describing. So yeah, it's been a lot of like that for me. I mean, I guess when it comes to projects I'm working on right now, I've it's been a hodgepodge of different projects. Like some that I started immediately dropped, some that I've put to the side. But like I'm working on some websites, basically personal websites. I've also been writing, and I mean, wanting to start this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, me and Jan are planning on starting a Bitcoin podcast as well. And
Nice.
so it's been another thing. And of course, like writing with the tooth.
Yeah.
And like
That too.
doing stuff
Yeah.
with the tooth.
That's kind of, yeah. I mean, that's where the emotions come, sort of like a roadblock in a way. Sometimes with me personally, lyrically, can be like very. It can almost be taxing, and almost like certain subjects are hard to really like pull out from under, like, all the shit that I've put on top of the emotions that I'm feeling when I'm writing about a certain subject or something.
Yeah, you got to dig deep.
Yeah. And sometimes that process is uh, fueled by things like this. Sometimes it's I'm dead sober at 4 a.m. and I can't sleep, or I just woke up from a dream or some shit. Like lyrics are a whole different thing that we could probably talk about,
Yeah.
like as a whole topic. I think
No, I would
I
love to.
was thinking about writing that down. Just writing in general, I guess.
I think like lyrics and poetry, even sometimes like I don't want to say business writing, but more like writing to explain something.
Yeah.
I think that yeah, doing that, lyrics, poetry, I think these three things like can pull from the idea of interweaving words in such a way to where it communicates a complex idea or communicates complex emotions
Mm-hmm.
or is extremely relatable and can like you can take your emotion and put it, you can package it into a set of words that will, if someone reads them or hears them, that same emotion will be reproduced in them.
Yeah.
Or maybe something similar or something just generally ambiguous or something like that. So yeah, I've always thought that was super magical. And for me, like yeah, like I have these ideas where, okay, for example, like I'm writing these like Western songs, like acoustic songs, like on my own right now,
Mm-hmm.
and they came from I don't know, they came from nowhere. Like it started with like a melody, like kind of a sound, and then words started to come up, but the words didn't even come from anywhere. It wasn't kind of around an idea, and it's a throwaway project, or it's like this isn't anything that I'm necessarily going to record. I'm not planning on doing it,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just like it comes out of you. It comes out and it's inspiring and it's like that energy. And when you feel that, you're like, ooh, like you know that it's powerful. Sometimes just like three words together will come in your head, or the completion of a line in a song, or changing, the way that you're saying a line to be more concise or something like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, like your mind is working in the background with all these things in your subconscious and kind of wanting to put things together in such a way that gives you energy and all that. So yeah, like that's been like part of the emotional, I guess, practice process of mine. um, and yeah, I think that's a wonderful thing to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so for me, I guess it's been mostly like emotional, um, but also like I've really, really tried to create like I guess a schedule and a set of things that I do every day. Um, and there's a side to creation that I think is less popular, which is like kind of just show up and do the work and write some bad pages or like write some bad songs, write some bad code, whatever you're doing,
Yeah.
and get it out there and just fucking do it.
Yeah.
And then come back the next day and do
Well,
it again.
that's exactly why podcasts are cool.
Yeah.
It's because like no matter what, you just need to stay consistent and keep doing them. Like that's really like the number one rule. And then other than that, you're good. Like
Yeah.
I mean, when it comes down to it, you know.
Yeah. And a lot of things are like that.
Yeah, for sure.
You have to be consistent. You have to work through the bad ideas.
Hmm.
And so
Every
yeah, I
band,
guess
every band I've been in and has either broken up or like kind of ended things or whatever. There's always another band that I'm ready to start diving into and just add to whatever creative avenue I can. You know, no matter what. Like that's always the important thing to remember. If anyone
mhm,
out there has ever been in that same situation, that you should never limit yourself to um one thing in your life. I mean,
yeah,
I think most people know that, but
I
coming
think
from
it's
someone that has had a bad habit of doing that sometimes, like subconsciously, you know, just with plenty of things in my life. I don't even too many to name, basically.
yeah,
But
and even like, do we do the throwaway projects or do the projects that you know aren't going to like before we start things? A lot of times we have this like economic calculation we do like, oh, will I be able to make
yeah,
this into something? Will I be able to post this on social media or whatever, or share this with people?
yeah,
And I actually think that I think that that can be like really deterrent for people, and it was for me.
it is for me
And I've
too.
actually gotten a lot out of doing things that no one will ever see, and it's just like me just creating for the sake of creating.
Yeah,
Um, it brings peace to your mind. Are you familiar with the book The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield?
the word of art.
The War of Art.
Oh, war of art. No.
It's kind of just a book about like kind of what I was talking about, just showing up every day and like going through the process. But he tells this story like he's a writer, and when he was young, when he was pretty young, like he was planning on being a writer. He tried to write a book,
Hmm.
and like it just didn't go well. And he talks about how he spent the next decade, 15 years, maybe even longer, almost just running away from it, trying to do other things, chasing girls, going to the bar every night, and stuff like that. And he says that like he had this moment where it was one night, and he was like, I couldn't, if I went to the bar again, if I chased girls again, like if I did any of these things again, I knew I would just fucking kill myself. Like I just couldn't do it again.
Yeah.
And he pulls out his typewriter instead, and it just starts writing out of desperation, out of just you know for the sake of doing anything else. And he says, I write for 2 hours, and I write just the most awful 8 pages you've ever seen. I didn't use them; they were trash.
Hmm.
And then something amazing happened. I was doing the dishes, and I found that I was whistling, or like I was just like I was happy, and I didn't realize it.
Yeah.
Like I was at peace, and I didn't realize it. And that was when I read that, I was wow, that makes so much sense. And like I needed to hear that because like sometimes you've got because the thought that like, oh, this will never turn into something,
Hmm.
that's like a force that pulls you away from doing exactly what you should be doing,
Yeah.
or exactly what will bring you peace of mind and make you feel proud of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
All of those
I
things.
struggle with that a lot, personally. Of
Mhm.
yeah, that feeling of, well, I got to invest this amount of time and this amount of money. So judging by the numbers, then like if the outcome isn't this, then it's just a waste of time. So
Yeah.
then at that point, once you master that, which you should never, but I've gotten to the point where I have, sometimes you have to like, once you get to that point, it's like an uphill battle, basically, to get anything done. Then you're fighting against yourself, and yourself can be really strong whenever all it wants to do is just give up, basically.
Yeah. Be comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. Be boring.
And yeah, no, exactly. And like that's what we're here trying to avoid that, trying to run away from that. And like it's a beautiful thing. Like we're young, our life is a mess, the world is a mess, but for some reason it's beautiful and it's wonderful. I don't know why. For some reason we're conscious. I don't know why. For some reason I hear a melody and it makes my nervous system light up.
Yeah.
And it makes me feel something. I don't know why. But that's beautiful, and that that makes me want to get up in the morning.
Maybe we can have an episode in the future of or a topic of pieces of art or music or songs or even game, whatever that light up our nervous systems, as you say.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that'd be awesome. It's
no matter how goofy they are or not, also, because I have a lot of goofy ones where I like listen to the song, I'm just like, this shit gets me going, and it's not a song that is supposed to get you going, I don't think.
Yeah, bro. Jar of Hearts, Christina Perri. Oh, every time.
Yeah, I was thinking of like songs by Shaba.
Jar.